So, you have an Ibanez guitar, or any other guitar that's using a Floyd Rose or a licensed Floyd Rose tremolo, and they start to do some weird things once in a while. And I had that problem with this guy. So this is a 2010 Ibanez, and it is an RG4EXQM1. Great guitar. I picked it up off of Facebook Marketplace, and it played really nice. I set it up, put some new strings on there, but whenever you used the whammy bar, it would sometimes actually go sharp, right? You do a dive bomb or whatever, and it would just, you let go and it would go sharp. It was really odd and really weird, and I never really saw anything on YouTube that actually addressed this problem. And what tipped me off to this is I had another guitar that I sold, and the guy that bought the guitar actually was a guitar tech as well, and I had suspicions of what was causing the problem, but I never really tore it apart and checked into it. And then he kind of clarified that, yeah, if you have this particular problem, here's the fix, and it was what I was thinking. So I want to pass that knowledge on to you guys. But then something else happened when I made this fix to this guitar. So it not only did it start staying in tune a hell of a lot better, it actually sounded 10 times better. And I'm going to explain exactly why on paper first, and then we'll get into another guitar that I haven't touched yet and see what's going on. So I'm going to bring this little diagram that I drew up. So what happens with the Ibanez is that the bridge floats on these pins, and these pins have this triangular conical shaped groove in them, and that's where the bridge mates into, and that is this shape here. What happens, so this is the top view, and this is this here is the side view. This pin goes into this slot, and that's where the bridge floats up and down. That's why you have this gap here, so you can move the bridge up and down. So you can do dive bombs, or you can actually pull and go sharp. And then the saddle for that wraps around that pin, and it looks like this guy. And what happens is this surface here gets banged up and damaged, right? This surface here, if it gets marred or banged up or damaged in any way, that is going to make it do wacky things because it's not seated into the groove properly, and B, it's not making as good of a connection as it can into the post itself. And that's where the extra tone came from. So on this guitar that I have here, I plugged it in, I was shocked. It was like, it sounded so much better because so much more of the vibrations from the strings were resonating through the body. So it actually really woke this guitar up quite a bit. So I have another guitar here that I haven't messed with yet. This, to the best of my knowledge, is an RG470 from 1996. Great story about this one, and things to look at. I actually found this one at a garage sale, and this lady had a Fender case sitting out there. She was just pulling all her stuff out, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, how much for the guitar? And she's like, $100. And I really couldn't tell, because if you look at the back of it on these older Ibanez's, and you can actually see on the back of the headstock, or you can, I don't know if it's focusing in quite enough, but you can actually see the serial number. So you can see this is F60. So this was just the serial number, and it doesn't tell you the actual model number. So I really didn't know what it was. What should have given it away were the V-series pickups and the whammy bar and some other stuff. But I took it out of the case, and the problem was it was in a Fender case. And you can see, I don't know if you can actually see, whoops, sorry here, let's fix that. The neck actually had a little bit of a crack in it, and that was because this guitar did not fit in the case. So another tip, if you're putting a guitar into a case that wasn't made for the guitar, make sure, because what was happening is the guitar itself was resting on the back of the case at the tip of the headstock here, and I'm assuming somebody dropped the case and it banged it up pretty well, and it put this little crack in there. So what I was able to do was get some really thin super glue, flow it in there, clamp it, and this thing plays really nice. But we're going to go in and check and see what we can do with the actual tremolo here. So I'm going to zoom you in a little bit. See if we can get things a little tighter. So I'm going to use the drill to remove the screws. I'm not going to use the drill to put the screws back in, but it's just quicker. Make sure it's going the right way. Also use the right bit. This is a number 1 Phillips. That's what these are screwed in with. I'm going to quickly take the screws off, set them aside so I don't lose them and I don't scratch up the guitar. So I'm going to cheat a little bit because I don't want to restring it. These are new strings on this thing. Take the whammy bar out. The whammy bar is actually out of the other guitar. I am going to loosen up the clamp nuts here on the nut itself. Actually going to use my string winder and I'm going to unwind 2 on each. That way I know how much I need to tighten them when I put it all back together. There's the backing plate. So this one has a lot of springs on it. Here's the ground wire. So I am going to use, hopefully this will work, I'm just going to use a pair of needle nose vice grips. These are really handy. If I can get in there, I can start pulling springs out. So I've loosened all the tension off of bridge. Let's see if this guy has the same kind of problem. So I'm going to lose the bridge. It's going to go out the back. Actually, I could have pulled the strings the other way too, out of the bridge itself. This. Get those back in. So now we can get a really good look. See if I can do that. So you can kind of see here, let me zoom in if I can get it to focus. You can see these surfaces here. Those are the surfaces that you really want to check out and investigate. You may want to get a magnifying glass, but you can see here, I really can't see without my glasses too well, but it is a little beat up. There is a little bit of marring. Whoops, it's off focus on this one too. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab a file. And I'm just going to smooth this out. I'm actually going to grab my magnifying headset as well. So here we go. I just have a little flat file. I mean, you can also use the rat tail file. Let's see if I can back it up here so you guys can see it. Just a little flat file for the flat one and for the rounded one. Actually, that's not the right one. We want a rat tail, which is a rounded, smooth file. And I've got my trusty headset magnifying goggles, and I can see. Let me make sure I get this to where you guys can see what I'm doing. Back it out a little bit. So all I'm going to do is inspect the edge down here and just lightly clean it up. You got to be very careful. You don't want to tear into this. This is brass and it's very soft, so you don't need a lot of filing. You can just kind of very lightly clean up the edge. Any burrs or marring to the surface. This one actually looks pretty good. Just going to clean it up a little bit. But that's the trick. You want to get these surfaces smoothed. You don't want to have any. And this one you can kind of, I don't know if you guys can see it. I'll see if we can zoom in here. This one, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, especially since I'm holding it here. Let me set things down and see if we can get a little tighter in there for you guys to see. So you can see on this side of the surface, apologize for the auto-focusing, but this is the area we're talking about right here. And if you can see how it's got that little shiny part, and I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but when I'm looking at it, it's a little beat up in there. So all we want to do is just very gently remove any of the burrs from this area here. Back it up. Any of the burrs in there, flatten that surface out. Same thing on here on the curved surface. We just want to gently smooth it. You don't want to tear it up and wear it down. And then the other tip, so that's all we need to do here. The other tip is when we reassemble this thing, here are the pins. And you also want to check the pins. Make sure that the pins aren't all chewed up. You know, it'll be different when you adjust the height, but when you put it back together, another trick that you can do is put a little lube in there to give it a smoother, slicker surface to float on. All right, that'll do it. Thanks a lot. Okay, back to do the assembly. I did a little bit of a cleanup with a really soft brush in the cavity to get the dust out. A little bit of quick wax on the finish. It's just something that shines up the paint without too much difficulty. The other tip, like we said, we're going to do, let's get this stuff out of the way. So I went and used my files. I cleaned up the parts of the bridge that hit those posts, and I'm just going to put a tiny little drop and this is just liquid wrench machine oil, just a tiny little drop on each side. It's actually spitting too much out. Don't need a whole lot, just a little tiny bit. Rub it in there. We'll get the bridge back in gently without messing up the finish. Flip it over. Reinstall our springs. This particular one has got all 5 springs in it. It's a lot easier to do it when you can grab a hold of this end of the spring and put it back into the hole.
On the other guitar I have, it had these kind of locked down with another plate over the top of it. But yeah, it's much easier to do it this way. So now we've got the bridge reinstalled. A couple of other pointers while we get this thing set back up. When you tune it, you want the bridge to be level. When it's all tuned with whatever tuning you decide, the bridge, let's see if I can get this here. This part of the bridge here, I can level this out just to show you, should be level with the guitar. That way you can bend up, you can dive bomb down. So whatever you're tuning your guitar to, standard, or if you're down a half step or drop D or whatever you're doing, you've got to adjust the spring tension so that the bridge is floating flat. I've seen a lot of guitars where I've purchased them or seen people using them where the bridge is sitting all the way back like that, or it's tilting too far down. And how you make that adjustment is with these two screws here. So tight, more spring tension. Loose is going to lessen the spring tension. So again, if you're in standard tuning, you're going to need more spring tension. As you go to half step down or drop D or anything like that, you're going to loosen those up. And just keep, it's a balance game. So you got to tune it, adjust it, tune it, adjust it until you get it floating in the right spot. Another thing to watch out for on these guitars is when, let's pull this off. So when you're setting up the string retention bar, if that's what it's called, on these guys, you want the string and the bar to be level with the back of the nut. Because if this bar is up too high and the string is sticking up, when you tighten the nuts down, it's going to go sharp. So the other tip is get this string bar positioned correctly, and you can see that this is where the string is just sitting on top of the nut there. I don't know if you can see that. Turn it sideways. You want that flush. You want that backside flush, because you get it all tuned up and then you go to crank the nuts down and then it'll go sharp and then you got to mess with it again. So I know some of them don't have this bar, but that makes your life really easy. If you don't have it, you're just going to have to live with it. Alright, I'm going to get it put back together. So I've got it back together, and now we're doing some tuning here. And get over here so you guys can see what's going on. So the way I'm tuning this guitar is going to be half step down on all these strings and a whole step down on this guy. So we're going to go, we're tuning this, you can see the tuner or not. We're tuning this to C sharp. Oh, another tip. Before you start tuning it, you need to center your fine-tuning adjustment knobs. You want to get them all about in the middle, and a way you can do that is you can kind of back one all the way out and roll one all the way down, and then take the next one and find the middle ground, and then just set them all to that level. So I've kind of just eyeballed it, so they're all in the middle, so you've got room to go sharp or flat if you need to when you lock the nut. So this bridge is hanging back a little too far. I don't know if you can see the angle there, but it is diving back. So what I'm going to need to do, I'm going to try and get it into tune and see how it levels off. Then I'll make some fine adjustments on the spring tension and bring it back to where it needs to be. So this 6th string, we're going to C sharp. Oops. And then this is going to be a G sharp. So we're a half step down from A. And then this is going to be a C sharp, half step down from D. Let's see. So that's a C sharp there. Should be an F sharp. And that's an A sharp. And that's a D sharp. So I've kind of got it close, but I can still see that we're still kind of, it's pointing down, it's sagging to the back. So the way to get that adjusted is I need to loosen the spring tension by backing these screws out. You want to keep them even. You want this piece to be even with the routed out piece of the guitar in the front so that you have even spring tension. That can cause problems too. If it's cockeyed sideways, you want to make sure that this is as level as possible. So all I'm going to do, and I'm just going to go out a little bit at a time. I'll probably just do like a half a turn on each screw. Again, keeping it even. You can get a, you know, if you want to get a dial caliper or something out to really do that, but then that's going to loosen the spring tension, and then we got to tighten things up. So we're going to C sharp there. I'm going to go to G sharp here. C sharp there. F sharp here. A sharp, and then back to D. D sharp there. And you're going to run it through it a couple times, because as soon as you tighten the top strings, it pulls. You can see right now we're going to be, we're flat, right? I tighten everything up. So you got to run through things a couple times until you kind of get it all fit. Sometimes you can just do the first couple strings and you can see, oh, I'm already starting to go flat there. We're getting closer. So you got to run through it a couple times to get things squared away. And now we're looking much better on the bridge. It's still kind of sagging low. You can see the fine-tuning screws are still sitting a little bit low. So I think we'll go another half turn out. Each of these screws. I'm just eyeballing it to keep the retention plate level, and then we're going to tune it again. Another trick you can do if you want to kind of balance it out is when you're running through, you can, you know, like if you do this one, and let's say you're doing standard tuning, you get that one to E, you go to the A string, you can make it a little sharp because you know you're going to balance out as you go across the bridge. Or you can just sneak it up all the way. There we go. Now we're right on the money. I don't know if you can see that. You can get the angle of the bridge, but the bridge here is level. I've got my fine tuners up above where I can actually get to them. They're not sunk down into the cavity, and we're pretty close to being in the tuning that I'm after. So I'm really close. We're going to lock everything back down. If I can find, there it is. locking nut screws. I always put just a decent amount of tension on them. You don't want to crank them down and strip the threads or anything, but you do need to get them tight, especially if you're pulling up on the strings or doing anything like that. You don't want the string slipping, but you don't want to crank it too tight. So there we go. Now we can fine tune it. A little sharp there. Make sure I got this right. Again. I can already tell we got a little more resonance going on in the guitar. So let's go out and play it and see what it sounds like. Alright, let's check it out. What I've got here behind me, Carbon X100B. This is like one of the first gens. It's not super crunchy, so I do have a Screaming Blues we can kick on, just give it a little extra oomph. And it's going through another Carbon X100B that needs a little work, but I'm using it as a speaker cab. That's a combo, but there's two Celestians in the bottom. So let's go neck pickup. Definitely go to the bridge pickup. That's why I tuned it down half step and then drop D, so it's actually dropped C sharp. Because I'm trying to learn the Unchained, tribute to Eddie Van Halen. But yeah, it's so much better. You just that little bit fixes it, gives it a little more connection between the bridge and the body, and you can feel it, you can hear it vibrate way better. Let's kick on the blues, Screaming Blues, the Digitech Screaming Blues. Give it a little more crunch. See, still learning it. I'll get there. The sound is there, and it's definite improvement with those little tweaks we did to the bridge. Definite improvement. Definitely. So I hope this helps you guys. I'm going to keep practicing because that sucked. But you'll feel it. You'll know it. You'll feel it. You'll be like, wow, this really woke my guitar up. So I hope it helps you guys. I haven't seen any other videos that specifically describe those little mods. So I hope I'm helping everybody out there. All right, peace out.